Hey guys, welcome back to the Silent Sales Machine radio podcast. I'm your guest host, Ryan Rieger, and today we're talking to Eric Moore. He's one of the very few second time guests on this podcast, but Jim talked with him. He's on episode 205, and on that episode, he tells Jim that he wants to quit his job and is planning on doing that. Well, on July the 20th of this year, he did that. And so we're catching up with him to learn how he did it, how he made that decision, the thought process he had behind that, what his business is going to look like now. And it's just really super cool because Eric's an inspiration. And we want more people like Eric to be able to quit their job and live the life that they're wanting to from this business. So very excited to chat with Eric. Here is my interview with Eric Moore. Eric, welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. I really appreciate you jumping back on with us. How are you?
Hi, Ryan. How are you doing? It's nice to meet you for the first time. I've seen you on some of the podcasts and things that you've done with Silent Sales Machine and the Facebook group. But it's great to talk to you in person.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. You are a returning guest. There's not many of those on this list. Jim has, 300 episodes or so now. And you are in that a very short list of people that have been on more than once. So
yes,
cool.
I was honored when I was asked to be on the podcast again, and I know we'll cover a lot of things today about that.
Yeah, I'm excited because you have entered. We need an official name for this, guys. It's essentially the Dads or Moms Coming Home Club. But you have entered the Dad Home Club. We need an official, really cool name for that. But you are in that club with me and a lot of other people. So congratulations. I want to get into that, about how you made that decision. But talk about pretend somebody hasn't had a chance to listen to episode 205 or your first one with Jim. Who are you and how did you get started?
Sure. Again, my name's Eric Moore. I'm married, my wife Lisa, and we live in Houston, Texas. And from episode 205, I encourage the listeners to go back and get a chance to look at it. I won't be able to cover all the details. And
sure.
Jim and I had a pretty long discussion, but basically we started selling on Amazon in June of 2017.
Okay.
And the interview was last year, so that would have been, about the 2-year mark.
Yeah.
And our main focus of selling on Amazon at that point was retail arbitrage.
Mm-hmm.
We had, online arbitrage as well, and we had some wholesale.
Okay.
And I relayed to Jim how, my goal was to go full-time with Amazon. I have an accounting degree and a business background, business operations. And so when I started with the Amazon journey 3 years ago, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that this was what I wanted to be doing full-time.
That's
and
awesome.
The data analysis, the constant learning, and opportunities have just been endless over these 3 years. And so I relate to Jim some of the stories of those first 2 years, and some of one of the main things that we talked about was retail arbitrage trips. Going out of town on out of town trips and things like that, and how those operations worked. But obviously, a lot has happened since that last interview that we had in July. So that's sort of a background, high level. Encourage people to listen to 205 if they have a chance.
Absolutely.
That's sort of the high level of who I am and what we've been doing.
Perfect. So your goal was to quit your job. I mean, you said that in that last episode, and now here we are, and you have.
Yes.
And that was 3 weeks ago now that you said bye-bye?
July 20th, Freedom Day.
Freedom Day.
That was the best day.
That's awesome. Wow, there's so much to dig in there because, you and I were just chatting, thinking about the people who want to be there and are just nervous to pull that trigger or not even sure. Eric, you have a business background so that you have an advantage there. So many of us start this business, me included, and had never really ran a business before. And so you started as a hobby and ends up being a business. You're like, wow, I have a business now and I've never done this before. And I don't really know my numbers. I don't even know if I'm profitable. And so we can dig into some of that stuff because that's so important. because you need to know your numbers. You need to know, where you need to be in order to be able to quit your job. So
Right.
what is
Absolutely.
go ahead. What do the last 3 weeks look like for you? So since you said the first 2 weeks were a blur, uh,
Well, and maybe we'll have time to cover, sort of the way things have gone since last July. But I guess what I'll step back and say was, in that episode 205, Jim made the comment to me, talking about how, I was doing this job and also my full-time corporate job. And he said, you can do that for, a couple years, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 at the most. And looking back at that interview and that comment, that was pretty prophetic, because 3 years is when I made that cut.
Wow.
And this year has been incredible.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't say that a main driver in this decision was, the whole COVID thing. But I will say that has made an incredible change in the business model across all areas. And I'm sure everyone has seen it in different facets in their business.
Sure.
But in doing this business now for 3 years, and over the past 3 or 4 months, I had just been incredibly busy. And over the past 2 months, June and July, things were just coming to a head where I just could not handle both opportunities.
Wow.
And in July, at my corporate job, we had been under furlough situations for since March. Basically, working from home, working 2 weeks, then off a week without pay.
Wow.
I fully utilized those times, obviously in the Amazon business, and it was the best thing. And so there was pressures at the corporate job.
Yeah.
And there was a decision that was made in July to where we weren't going to be on 1 week furloughs, but we were going to be on 1 day a week furloughs for the third quarter.
Okay.
And so, at first I thought, well, that's good. I was to be honest, I was sort of bummed, because that would take away more time that I was using to be able to, use the Amazon business. But the company made a decision to bring on a software program for the particular group that I was in. It was pertinent to our work. And, my boss just sent out an email mid-July and said, the decision has been made for the company to implement this, and you're going to be expected to work 50, 60 hours a week, plus maintain your regular duties and all this kind of stuff. And I replied to him and I asked him, I said, hey, was there any consideration given to the fact that we're under furlough? And he actually said, well, yes, I did bring that up to the president and CFO of the company, but they both said that furlough was important for the business right now. And so you're going to be expected to, manage. So, that didn't sit very well with me at all. And really, when you think about it, that's a corporation saying, okay, we're going to pay you for 32 hours, but we want you to work 50 hours or more so that you make sure you get this software program implemented.
Right. Right.
And that's just taking advantage, honestly.
Yeah.
And, I had, as I mentioned, when I started doing this, I wanted to leave my corporate job. It just was not what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Did they know, real quick question, because a lot of people struggle with this. Did your boss and your company know about your Amazon business?
No, absolutely not. And
did you have to keep that separate pretty much and make sure they didn't? Okay.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I kept that separate. I did not talk about that with anyone at the office. They did not know about that.
Okay.
But that was Friday, July 17th.
Okay.
Now, where that email went out. And so at that point in time, and at that moment in time on Friday, July 17th, I knew that I was at a decision point.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I was stressed and I was uptight as could be, because, things had already been just really crazy with trying to manage everything for months. And it had continued to ratchet up harder and harder. And that particular week, actually, I had one of my shoppers from North Carolina. She's college age. She's studying nursing. Her summer job that she had hoped to get that was sort of related to nursing fell through because of COVID.
Okay.
But she had been shopping for us for a year at college, when she had time. And so I had spoken to her at the beginning of the summer, and she started working for us full time in the summer.
Wonderful.
Well, obviously she was trying to save money for college and she needed, funds. And so I reached out to her early July and said, hey, there's some opportunities out here. Would you be willing to come out to Houston for, 2 weeks
Yeah.
and work full time? And she was like, absolutely. So she had been here in our house the whole week working.
Yeah.
And, on my furlough day, her and I were knocking out a huge shipment.
Yeah.
And when I was doing that, and as I was seeing how things were going, and I already knew this in my head, but again, when you see how it works and things are going smooth, you're thinking to yourself, hey, this could be done full time. I could do this. And when you have, workers that work with you and your team, you see, hey, this isn't me coming home at 5 p.m. from my corporate. I've got to knock out a 300 item shipment by myself. How am I going to manage this? No, when you have workers, and so it was like a massive light bulb that I already knew that was there. I'd already seen it before, but it was just amazing having her there. And then when that email came out Friday night, I was like, or Friday afternoon, I was like, okay, something's got to happen this weekend. And I had to put it out of my mind because I had two-man shop teams that were going to be working in town the whole weekend. Plus I was going to be out shopping that weekend. We had massive hits that we were putting on stores that weekend. I just had to put it out of my mind. And so I did that when I left the office Friday. The shop teams and myself, just nailed it Saturday. And then finally Sunday when I get up and I go to church, man, Ryan, I'll never forget that Sunday morning. I walk into church, I sit down next to my wife, and I just start weeping. I can't stop for 15 minutes. The music's playing, beautiful hymns, beautiful words.
Yeah.
And there's the things that were going through my mind was this. Okay. First off, God, thank you for putting me in this opportunity, and thank you for your blessings.
Yeah.
Thank you for these opportunities I had in front of me. Secondly, I was just mentally and physically totally spent.
Yeah.
Third, I had fear. I'll be honest. I had fear. I'm like, hey, this is what I've wanted. This is what I've worked towards for 3 years. I've put myself through massive amounts of efforts.
Right.
And I'm here, and I know I have to make this decision this weekend because I knew that I was not going to put myself through the rigors of what was being asked on the corporate side, plus being able to still grow my Amazon business.
Right.
And so my wife was like, honey, what's wrong? And she's giving me tissue, and I'm, wiping my eyes. I finally pulled together after 15 minutes, and, the sermon was a blessing. And, we go home, we have dinner or lunch, and then we take a nap. And I needed a nap like crazy. Then we get up and we go out to dinner. And of course, my wife knew that we needed to talk. And, she knew what was going on, of course. I had kept her abreast of everything with the corporate, and she knew that. And she, she said, Eric, you've changed over the past couple months. You're too stressed. You're just, it's too much.
Yeah.
So we went to dinner, and we had a piece of paper, and we just started to write out the pros and cons. And we started with the pros first.
Pros of leaving your job.
The pros of leaving the corporate and doing Amazon full time. And we just kept writing on the pros. We probably had about 10 to 15 pros.
Okay.
And some of the pros on that list were, more time, obviously, to run the business.
Yep.
More time to spend together as a husband and wife, working the business together.
Yeah.
Less stress. Some people may think, well, this, running the Amazon business is stressful. And really, I'll be honest with you, Ryan, for the past 3 weeks, I haven't felt like I've been working. But I mean, I've been working very hard. Believe me,
Right.
I've been putting in, 10, 12-hour days sometimes. But
Hmm.
it doesn't feel like what I was dealing with for 3 years, having to do both. So it
Yeah.
was a big difference.
Yeah.
So we just wrote out all the pros. Then we wrote
Yeah.
the cons side. Okay.
Uh-huh.
There were 2 cons.
Versus 10 or 15 pros. Wow.
Yes. And
Wow.
we looked at each other and we said, we're doing this.
Yeah.
This is a no brainer.
Yeah.
Okay. And, of course, one of the main drivers, obviously, in this is, from a financial perspective.
Sure.
And in running this Amazon business, you have to be very good managing cash flow. And I have a phrase, that I tell my wife and my daughter and her boyfriend. They laugh at me. I say, cash is king, cash flow is emperor.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that is the name of the game. And so, the first 3 years, the first 2 especially, we rolled our funds from Amazon every single payday into inventory. We didn't take any profits until like December after each Q4.
Okay.
We paid off some, debts and things like that. Well, then the beginning of year 3, calendar year 3, which would have been actually January of this year, we started taking, regular funds each month.
Yep.
And so, if you were to listen to episode 205, I sort of shared some of my financial goals of, what I wanted to accomplish before making the cutover corporate. I had mentioned, having all our credit cards paid off, our car, my son's college note, and that would just leave the mortgage. And I joked with Jim and I said, Jim, if I didn't have my mortgage, I'd quit right now.
Yeah.
And so over the past 6-7 months, we wiped out all of our credit card. We wiped out our last car notes. And we basically just have our mortgage and our portion of our son's college notes.
Yeah.
Which, I had initially hoped to clear that this past December, and maybe we'll have time to talk about, some things that happened after, this past July. But anyway, the college note will be taken care of by March.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so that would just leave the mortgage. So, as we're sitting there having dinner, I'm talking with my wife. We're talking about the pros and cons. I'm talking with her about the financials, obviously, and of course I made the comment to her, life isn't a Christmas wrapped bow package type of deal. My Christmas wrapped package would have been stepping away from the corporate with the mortgage totally paid. That would have been my ultimate.
Yeah.
But that would have taken another 3 years running both jobs. And there was no way that was clear. There was no way that could happen.
Right.
And so, we had to make the determining factor. Okay, what's more important? Your time and your freedom. And freedom, that word means a lot to me.
Yes, it
and
is.
it means a lot in being able to run this business and make your decisions.
Yeah.
And have your own schedule. And so, I told her, I said, I know we can do this from a financial perspective. Yes, it's scary just because,
sure,
you've been under the corporate umbrella for almost 30 years. Okay. But almost the whole step along the way, you knew that you weren't happy in it. You knew that that's not what you wanted to do. And so having this opportunity, and sort of this, pivot point that was, thrown on my lap where it was like, hey, you have to make this decision now.
That's right.
And so we felt complete peace about it. We prayed about it. We prayed that night. I said, God, please do a miracle. If you don't want this to happen, make it clear within 24 hours, because, the plan was to go in Monday and say, that's it.
Wow.
And so, that's what happened. That's what went down. And I'll tell you, after that meal with my wife, and I was talking about it, I felt like 100 pounds just came off of my neck and shoulders.
You knew that you made the right decision in there.
Yeah, I knew. I mean, we prayed about it, but I mean, I knew because it was just like such a weight that was lifted.
You had the peace. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What was that moment like? When did you, I assume you went in and told your boss then, or what was that moment like?
Well, I went in that Monday morning and, that evening, I had cleaned up emails and files. And, that morning I went in, I did the same, had a little bit more things to clean up. And I actually had a few things that he had requested of me over the weekend. And so I sent those to him via email, and I noticed he had a meeting at like 10:30 to 11:30. And I was like, okay, this is my chance. So at 10:30, I had cleared everything. I had taken care of everything. I had sent the stuff to him that he had requested, and I just packed up my stuff and I went down to to find HR, and nobody was there. They're working from home. So I found a receptionist, gave him my computer, my tokens, my access badge, and said, I'm done.
Wow.
And then just walked out. And that was like the best feeling, let me tell you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And you're not regretting it.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. And I'll tell you that the past 3 weeks, we've been so busy, and God has just blessed so much. June and July have just been crazy. July has been even crazier. And then, the past 3 weeks, with having, that worker of ours in for 2 weeks, they're just knocking out massive shipments, shopping, just finding great deals. It's just been great, and
that's awesome.
This past Sunday, I told my wife, the second Sunday in a row, I said, hey, this is the second Sunday that I'm not getting that 5 p.m. pit in the stomach feeling that I always get.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then we just, I sat down in my chair here in the office, and I just did a brain download to my wife, and I just said, okay, here, honey, if you could, write down the to-do list for this coming week, so we went over the to-do list, things that needed to get done, the things that, we'd like to get done, and then some strategic things, so it's just been great, and, I would just say to people that are out there that are contemplating it, obviously the main concern is, financial, because, you want to make sure you can take care of your family and take care of your obligations. And, you have to know your numbers. You have to have, accounting system or an inventory system. And we use Inventory Lab, and we have a tax accountant. But Inventory Lab, you can run a P&L and everything can be on there. It keeps track of everything. Some people use QuickBooks or whatnot, but you have to be very good at managing your cash and your inventory, because you want to buy stuff that's going to sell quick, because you want to keep spending that money.
Absolutely.
And so, if you have a handle on that and you know your numbers, you'll see your cash flow, and you'll know, okay, this is how it's going. And, as you do it for, a period of time, you sort of get an understanding of it. But I mean, even now for myself, I still watch it like a hawk, because, it's all on me now.
Right.
There's no excuses. There's nothing. And I'm not the type of person that makes excuses, but I'm just saying it's on me now. So I have to stay on top of it. And, truthfully, I'll say, I mean, when you make this kind of a big decision, you're looking at your numbers every day, because you want to make sure, okay, yeah, things are going along. Okay, we're good. And I can be real tight and focused and know how my current pay cycle is, and then the next pay cycle. And I can judge, so that gives me a month leeway of knowing how the numbers are going to look. And then, of course, as you're doing your shopping and then your planning and your inventory, that you have stuff in the queue that's going to, kick in for the next thing. Right. So I'm not scared about it. I know that everything is in God's hands. I know that He brought us to this decision. There's been multitudes of things that He has done for us, just circumstances, blessings, and it's just been amazing to see. And so, it's actually grown my faith a
Yeah.
lot stronger because I now take things, day by day. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, you have to be able to look at the long term view, but you also just say, God, give me my daily bread,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's right.
help me to live this day, honoring you,
Yep.
loving my family the best way that I can. And yes, we all fail in those kinds of things from time to time, but um, I wanted the freedom
Mm.
more than anything.
Love it.
And so, if I'm not mortgage free, okay, well, I just work on that now.
Right.
And so, when I spoke with Jim, last year, I talked about the segments of business that we had, and, you know, we haven't even scratched the surface of the opportunity. That's the thing. The
That's right.
opportunity is massive.
It
I
is.
mean, we have to grow our wholesale side of the business bigger. We haven't even done replens. Okay,
Mhm.
I know all about that, but I've been busy with RA, and so that's
Wow.
one of the things that I'm gonna, work on as well is the replens program
Awesome.
that's talked about,
Yeah.
uh, and then also, hopefully, soon start looking at, private label.
Yeah.
Uh, so
That's great.
I'm just really excited about all of the opportunities and just everything that's in front of us right now.
Wow.
And so it's been exciting.
That's cool. Congratulations. I got a question. So that people who are, you don't have to share. I don't want to know what you were making at your job, but can you, as far as a percentage, where
Yeah.
were you with your Amazon business in percentage wise to your corporate income?
I didn't look at it that way. I
Okay.
just sort of looked at it where, okay, I know what my sales are and I
Uh-huh.
know what my profit percent is
Okay.
to my sales. It runs like 15 to 18%.
Okay.
Um, uh, I would say we were probably, sort of right on the edge
Okay.
as far as
Okay. Nice.
matching it.
Nice.
Um, you know, when we was on that podcast with Jim last year, I said, my first goal was obviously to get to 1 million in sales because,
Mm-hmm.
my profit percent's, 15%. So that'd be 150,000. And
Uh-huh.
that's after, employees, taxes,
Sure.
expenses, everything.
Yep.
Um, so, we may come in a little bit under 1 million this year in sales,
Okay.
but that would be fine.
Yeah.
Because, obviously we had knocked out some of our monthly, obligations, the credit cards and card
Mm-hmm.
payments.
Mm-hmm.
And we also are in the process of refinancing our house. So
Okay.
that's going to knock off probably $400 to $500 a month on
Nice.
our house payments. So,
That's awesome.
so those are all things that just sort of came together,
Sure.
right around this time frame of this decision. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
uh,
If you
it's
hadn't, if your Amazon income was, let's say it was only 50 to 60% of your corporate income, do you think you still would have been able to make that leap, knowing that you'd have 5 days a week now instead of one?
well, I that was something that was always on my mind. Like in
Mhm.
year two.
Sure.
It's like, okay, I see where my numbers are. And,
Hmm.
this isn't enough to cover the monthly expenses. What would I do? Or I just keep
Hmm.
plugging away. And, I just kept plugging away.
Yeah.
Um, but I do know this. I mean, obviously, just in the 3 weeks, having your whole schedule open to, focus on the business.
Yeah.
I can easily see how you can grow the business quicker if you have more time.
Yeah.
And really I've just seen that because the amount of capital that we've had available to us over the past couple of months.
Hmm.
When I first thought about it, I was like, man, that's a lot of money, that I'm pumping in and out.
Sure.
But I can easily see it,
Yeah.
how it was like just massively mushrooming the snowball of opportunity. And so once you have time, and if you have capital availability, that snowball is just going to expand, and then
Yeah.
you really are not having to worry as much. Not
Right.
that you're worrying, but your numbers just grow.
Yeah.
And just to throw this out at you too, a couple of years ago, you hear people talk about having a warehouse and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you always aspire, or you think, man, it would be cool to have a warehouse and wouldn't have to work out of my home, with all this stuff, clogging up the living areas, my
Right.
wife being patient,
Sure.
and it's like, we clear everything out. We get like 2 days of respite and then it's loaded back up again.
Right.
So she's nice. She's been very good about that. But, I know that it would, eventually it would be nice to have something like that. But just in these 3 weeks, Ryan, I've seen and I've already thought, hey, yeah, we could do this. Now we've got that kind of decision would not be made until like next year, because
Sure.
just another thing that I've got in front of me is my daughter's getting married in March.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. Now, thankfully, we had already been saving for that at the beginning of this year. But it's like as you get deeper into the time, obviously you're locking down your caterer, your
right,
your photographer, and so you got some big money that's going out.
They need deposits, probably, don't they?
Yeah. So, so we wouldn't even think about a warehouse until next year. But the point that I'm trying to make is, I'm already thinking about that.
Yes.
I'm already seeing it as a possibility. Not, and several years ago, if I would have been talking about that or thinking about that, I would, well, no, that's just pie in the sky dream. That's never going to happen.
Sure.
But as you see when you make wise use of your capital, you just plug it in there and it just boom, it explodes.
Yeah.
You just keep having more, and you just you keep managing that.
That's awesome. We need to wrap this up. Let me give you one more question, because I know there's a lot of people, Eric, they're like, gosh, I want to be in Eric's shoes. I want to be able to quit my job. I hate what I'm doing. It just is sucking the life out of me. And there's so many guys, especially like that. They want to be home with their family like you are now. What's advice for them on just even some practical stuff on, I know about knowing your numbers. That's probably a big,
right. Yeah.
What else would you say to encourage that guy that's in that position?
I would just say 2 things: personal responsibility. Jim and the group has the phrase business building warriors.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a warrior.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm talking, you're going to be bloodied and you're going to be beaten. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to spend massive amounts of time and effort. I mean, that's what I did for 3 years, Ryan.
Yep.
I mean, working, 40 to 50 hours at corporate, and then working as many hours as I could with Amazon. And I'm talking, the first year, most days of the week, and the first year, obviously, you may be doing a lot of this stuff by yourself before you're bringing in people to help you. But I mean, most days I was up till 1, 2 in the morning, pumping out shipments, and then sourcing on the weekends and the evenings as I was able. And then you've got to realize that you got to bring on help too. That's been very huge. I mean, we've got shoppers that shop for us now. But the 2 words, personal responsibility, you're going to have absolute 100% commitment.
Yep.
And just a driving energy and driving force behind you that says, I'm doing this no matter what.
Right.
And that's what I would say, and an example of where, a personal responsibility hit me right in the head this week. Wednesday, I flew out to Atlanta to source, and I was out in Atlanta area from Wednesday, and I flew back Saturday night.
Okay.
And I picked up a couple of things for my wife, just some nice makeup type stuff. And I didn't take the personal responsibility to look at those things careful enough. So when I go through security coming home, 2 of the items that I got for my wife were over the 3.4 ounces or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had, an anger, upset moment at the TSA people where really that had to be directed at me. I had to look in the mirror. That was my fault.
Yeah.
I did not look at it close enough. And so that was just because that's something that has just sort of been on my mind a lot this year, especially over the past 4 months with everything that's going on in the world. We don't even have time to dive into that.
Sure.
But personal responsibility is huge.
Yeah.
And this world and this country does not have that like it should.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you have to look in the mirror and you have to take personal responsibility for your situation and for what needs to be done.
Mm.
And so
Nice.
it's not easy.
Nope.
It's not, there's no easy button on this.
No, it's not.
It's just a lot of work and it's effort, but it's constant learning, constant growth, and it's exciting.
And it's worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it. Absolutely.
Absolutely worth it. Awesome. Eric, thank you so much. I know we could dive into so much more with you. You are a wealth of knowledge, and excited to chat with you today. And thanks for coming back on, and congratulations for making that leap and being another dad that's now home.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when we had that conversation with Jim, we talked about how he said, yeah, we'll have to have you back when you do 1 million or 5 million in sales. And so, it's like, when you wanted to interview me, I was like, well, I really haven't done anything yet. I mean, yes, I made this big decision, but now it goes back to personal responsibility. Now it's time to get to work and learn everything and keep growing and hit those goals. And so,
absolutely,
that's what I want to do. I'm willing to, talk to people that have questions or open for anything like that. But it was really, really good talking with you, Ryan.
Love it. Well, thanks so much for doing this, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
All right.
Take care.